You know, I don't watch a lot of commercials, excuse me, nowadays, and not a lot of cartoons either. But I don't watch a lot of commercials nowadays because I don't watch traditional TV. I'll watch stuff on YouTube. I have different subscriptions that I'll maybe like stream a movie from or something like that. I like to watch specific sports. And so I'm not watching a ton of commercials like I was back when I was a kid. So I kind of have forgotten how ridiculous commercials really are. But I was watching some stuff last night on my phone. Long story, I had to stay all up. I was getting up all night. I was getting a colonoscopy the next day. I was just lying there doing nothing, going through the protocols. Anyways, I digress. And the shampoo commercial came up. Not this one specifically, but one like it came up. And I was just watching it for a second, and I'm like, What is this? Like, what is our world? What is normalized on this planet? It's so weird. So I'm going to give you guys an example. I just found another random shampoo commercial that I found online, and I just want you to really think about it for a second. And we're going to talk about it, like what it really are we allowing to happen and go on in terms of marketing materials and communication and common business practices. It is so weird and bizarre and backwards. And this just lends to a greater question about what's really going on in the broader world, and what are we allowing to kind of happen, and what things are we normalizing that are completely bizarre and backwards, and like we know deep down, but we're not confronting that reality. So we're going to go into some amazing clips that I just ran across from David Icke, where he talks about not about spirituality, not about the big picture, which is of course what I'm more focused on this channel, but going into the idea of what's happening within the political and cultural landscape on this planet, and how things are so normalized in terms of, well, this is how we make change, or this is how we assert our authority and our freedom and our sovereignty, but it's just all made up, it's all pretend, and we're just kind of co-signing it by really just allowing all sorts of ludicrous things to go on unchecked on this planet. This is a small example, but this is one of them. Just watch this commercial for a second.
Now stronger hair starts before you shampoo. New Everpure Bond Repair Pre-Shampoo from L'Oreal with citric acid repairs weak hair bonds. Hair smoother than with the #1 professional routine. Everpure sulfate free from L'Oreal.
Okay, so they said hair smoother than with the #1 care routine. When you watch this stuff, does anybody even at this point, maybe there are a handful of people that are like, wow, it's stronger than the #1 hair care routine, and they're like, man, that sounds amazing, I'm gonna go buy it. Some people might get fooled by that, and that really sucks. But most of us are like, yeah, they're probably just saying that. Like, what? Like, that's the reality that we live in, that people are just saying that, or they're finding some way to couch that in some sort of semblance of the truth, and then pass it along in a commercial and just like spout this out to the public. Like, we're okay with that. And then that little diagram that they show, the the vitamin A going out and repairing the bonds of the hair, does that have any relationship to how it actually operates? Is it really that miraculous of a like hair follicle repairing that's happening in real time when you see those? Like, it's just so, the whole thing is just a bunch of garbage and nonsense. And then on top of that, you're having, like, we all know the big lie too. You're having models kind of represent with like perfect hair, represent this brand, obviously giving the subliminal message that you're going to have hair like that. And it's like, we just don't even think about it. We just accept it. This is how you market a product. You got to make people want it. You got to make them think but like, why not just try and work on a product that actually works, present it the way it actually operates, and move on with that? But no, we've so normalized it. Anyways, it's just an example of something that we don't even think about, but I feel like we absolutely should think about, because I think it's an indication of all these underlying systemic issues that run rampant on our planet, but we don't think about it. It's just like, yeah, well, dude, what do you expect? That's life. That's normal. No, why is that life? Why is this normal? This is not normal. We all know on intrinsic, I'm telling you, we all know this is not how it's supposed to be. We're not just supposed to be having these big, supposedly well-respected companies. I don't think anybody respects them nowadays, but supposedly respected companies just spouting off nonsense and spreading lies, really is what it is. But because it fits within the legal standard, we allow it. Like, this is not normal. Okay. Now we dive in. That's my little preamble. Now let's dive into David Icke on the broader picture of when we talk about what's happening and what's happening on this planet. What are the things that are going wrong, and when people try to affect change, how it just seems to not be impactful whatsoever. How things are so misaligned, and why they're so misaligned, and why our efforts almost seem futile when we try to make a change.
And so what humanity has been manipulated to do is look at the world, see how it would like to change it, but running around just the same as standing on the stage in a movie theater and screaming at the screen, demanding that it changes. This is waving your banner in a protest, screaming at the screen, demanding the movie changes. Never going to change. It's hit the screen, it's a done deal. You want to change the movie, you've got to change where the movie's coming from.
Where the movie's coming from. You know, this message resonates with me so much, and I wonder if it resonates with all of you guys. I'm sure there are people that will see this and be like, "What are you talking about?" That's how these are the known methods for public protest, voting in elections. Like, this is how you affect change. It works. It's democracy. Like, and I get all that from the things that we've been taught since we were young. But I know there's a lot of you out there too, like me, that have been feeling for a long time that, like, it just doesn't seem like any of this stuff really changes anything. Things seem to be, now when you zoom out and look at the power structures, they're only getting, it seems, more centralized and more powerful and more corrupt. And we still seem to be in a worse mess today than we were 50 years ago, 100 years ago. And the methods that are put in place to affect change, like, they don't really seem to be working. Like, this idea of going out and protesting and voicing your opinion on a grand scale for the major systemic issues, it just doesn't seem like it's doing anything. Or even this idea of, look, you want to go vote, go do your thing. I'm not saying not to vote per se. This is not me getting out there and be like, nobody should vote. I don't really care one way or the other. But there's got to be people out there like me that, first of all, just think about it mathematically. Number one, your specific individual vote. Like, I can get if you're going out there and getting a lot of people to vote or vote a particular way. Okay, maybe you can sort of like affect a small amount of change in terms of a race between two people. By the way, it's just two options. Okay, but anyways, that one singular vote statistically has never swayed an election. Definitely not a presidential election. It's impossible. It's almost statistically, it's near impossible for one vote to affect change. So I just can't ever. And I don't want to belabor the point or argue with people when they're like, hey, it's really important that you go vote. Okay, sure. But it's just never been a thing. That one marginal vote has never been the linchpin in a result. So I never think about that really. But then you think more broadly, okay, yes, it's so important to vote. What are the options? You get two options. Okay, yes, we have these preliminary elections and you're kind of voting down to different candidates. But again, we're getting this slim picking. Everything is sort of run through this systematic filtration process. And ultimately, what are we getting in this two-party system? Candidates that have supposedly been vetted through this process that are both supposed to be the best of the best. And then it really should be, we're picking between two amazing people after all this, but it's never that way. It's always one party is demonizing one side, the other party is demonizing the other side. And then we always end up in all these messes with all of these scandals and all of these continued problems, continued wars. Like, it's just not, it just doesn't really seem like the system has any true way of remedying itself with the mechanisms in place. Like, something deeper, something more systemic is going on. Now David Icke gets to the ins and outs of how he frames it, why it seems like this is an impossible puzzle. It is the way that it's set up. I'll let David Icke take it away.
I just want to get your thoughts on Trump, the Trump phenomenon, and what you can tell about the rest of the world by looking at their reaction to Trump.
Well, Trump is the equivalent of a Hollywood actor on the movie screen. And the anti-Trumps people are other actors in the movie. And so those people that get caught in it, oh yeah, he's the baddie. He's the baddie in this movie. That Trump, he's the baddie. Oh no, he's the goodie. He is the person I like. Right? It's a movie, and while we are focusing on this again, this minutiae of Trump, anti-Trump, left, right, and all this nonsense that we get caught into, Silicon Valley's doing what it is doing in terms of destroying freedom of information and driving on behalf of things like DARPA, the technological development arm of the Pentagon, this AI transhumanist agenda. It's a diversion.
And this is what it's always felt like to me. You watch the debates, you watch people talking about these micro issues of, should this be legalized? Should that be legalized? No, this is anti-Christian. No, this is anti-freedom. And it's just back and forth. And it's always something. And we champion debate. We champion discourse. This is how ideas get shared. And I'm like, it just never sat with me that anything productive happens. We've had so many of these same debates go on for years and years, and they're impossible debates. I'll just take the abortion one as an example. People are not going to shift one way or the other. And this is just something that has been talked about and pushed back and forth in the courts for decades at this point. And I get that it is a important, a triggering issue, but ultimately that's how it's always felt to me. Yes, I get that. But there are bigger things on this planet going on, much bigger, much more horrendous, much more horrible. We have human trafficking. We have wars being had that we don't really even understand why they're happening. And people are going out there and there's just horrible atrocities, mass amounts of poverty. And we're talking about these little micro issues and why, or, we have these political landscapes that are developed and built for people to be bifurcated. And then that's how it's felt to me. And that became so apparent when I finally stepped away from the news for a lengthy period of time. And then you go back to it and you're like, what are these people talking about? Everybody's angry. Everybody's mad. Everybody's got a vantage point. You can watch one news channel and think one way, watch another one and think the other way. It feels so performative. And I think David Icke just calls it out right there. It's a movie. It's a movie. Like then it all makes sense. It's one big giant reality show. All right. So to get to the heart of what's really going on, and this is not David Icke's the only person that's come up with this. Stephen Greer. So many people have talked about the secret, what's it called? The behind the scenes government, if you will, the cabal, the Illuminati, whatever you want to call it, the people behind the scenes, the shadow government that's really running things. David Icke says, you want to know who's really running things? It's not the people that are in office for 4 years, out of office, in for 2 years, out. Look at that which is always there. There we go. Where's my mouse? Here we go. Check this out.
These here today, gone tomorrow politicians are just that. Here today, gone tomorrow. What we need to look at is that which is always there, because that's where the power is. That's what pushes this agenda on, no matter who's in power, who's the president, what party, whatever. A quick example. In September 2000, an organization in America called the Project for the New American Century published a document calling for the American government to, quote, fight and decisively win multiple theater wars to bring about a series of regime changes. And it named the countries that they wanted to regime change: Iraq, Libya, Syria, Lebanon, Iran, North Korea, China. The people who published that document included Donald Rumsfeld, who a few months later would be Secretary of State for Defense in the Bush administration, Paul Wolfowitz, who would be his deputy at the Pentagon, Dick Cheney, who would be de facto president under Bush for 2 terms, Dov Zakheim, who would control the entirety of the Pentagon budget in that same period. In that document in September 2000, they said that this process of transformation, all these regime changes, would necessarily be slow. This is the quote, absent some catastrophic and catalyzing event like a new Pearl Harbor. 1 year to the month after that document was published, 9 months after the people that wrote it came to power in the Bush administration, the United States had, in September 2001, what Bush called at the time the Pearl Harbor of the 21st century. As a result of that, this process of regime change was triggered by the so-called war on terror justified by 9/11, which the official story of 9/11 is tragically laughable when you break it down and you see how the contradictions. Anyway, this is where I'm going in terms of the politicians and Trump. First man in, of course, officially, George W. Bush. They went into Afghanistan. Then, with Tony Blair lying about weapons of mass destruction, they went into Iraq. And the reason they lied about weapons of mass destruction is because Iraq was on this list of regime change. They didn't have an excuse, so they made one up. And by the way, let us not forget, people now, including even the mainstream media, accept that they were lied to over weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, which led to a catastrophic invasion and the catastrophe that has followed. Let us not forget that the very same people, not the same agencies, the same governments, the same personalities that told us there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq when they knew they weren't, were the same people that gave us the official story of 9/11. Okay, so the list, Iraq. Then they go into Libya, also on the list. But now Bush is gone, Blair's gone. Now it's Barack Obama. He's a Democrat, not a Republican. And it's David Cameron. He's a conservative, not the illusory of Labour, Blair. But now they're going into another one on the list, and then into Syria. And again, creating mayhem and catastrophe. Libya is one of the great world's basket cases now, when it was the highest per capita income country in Africa before they sent the boys in. And so that was Obama, and that was Cameron. Then we come to Trump. And Trump is now, yes, he's supposed to be a Republican, but he's the anti-establishment man. He's a maverick. A maverick who was going to drain the swamp and handed the American economy to Goldman Sachs from day one or before day one. But who is he demonizing now? He's demonizing Iran, and he's demonizing North Korea, other people on the list, other countries on the list. So this list from September 2000 has been ticked off all the way through these different politicians and different parties and different personalities. So no matter who's coming and going or who you're going to vote for, it's like some Americans say, it don't matter who you vote for, the government still gets in. Yes, the secret government. Because
there it is, right? Nothing seems to change. It's the same hands behind the wheel that are turning and steering. Things are not as they seem. Now, what he mentioned with that document, I just wanted to pull up an excerpt that I generated from ChatGPT, just summarizing this document. If you haven't heard of it, it's called Rebuilding America's Defenses, published in 2000. And it said the authors argue that the United States should preserve and extend its global military dominance by maintaining forces capable of defending the homeland, conducting constabulary missions abroad, and most strikingly, being able to fight and decisively win multiple simultaneous major theater wars, just like David Icke just said. In case you hadn't heard this or you were a little you were a little skeptical of what he was saying. The report frames this as necessary to uphold what it calls the American peace, warning that regional powers hostile to U.S. interests could use ballistic missiles and weapons of mass destruction to deter American intervention. It specifically identifies regimes such as North Korea, Iraq, Iran, Libya, and Syria as states developing or possessing missile capabilities that could threaten U.S. allies, U.S. forces abroad, and in North Korea's case, potentially the American homeland. The document's overall thrust is that American global leadership depends on an overwhelming military superiority, forward deployed forces, missile defenses, and the ability to intervene decisively in multiple regions at once. The broader point is things on this planet are not as they are presented. Even these stupid commercials are emblematic of that. But so is the entire system that we have set up in order to choose leadership. Things are not as they seem. The way things work, the motivations behind them, things are not as they seem. And this channel is not, I am not a political expert. This channel is not about politics. This channel is not about that particular sub issue, which is probably a very important issue to be explored by people that are much more studied and knowledgeable about these subjects than me. But this is zooming back one level further, that if there's so much deception and backwardsness on this planet in terms of the systems that we have in place, that we just accept, that we just go with, something is amiss. Something is very off. And that should hopefully push us to ask those deeper questions. Like, let's take a minute and let's really sit back. If all these things are out of whack and so bonkers and so bizarre, and if we can see some of the contradictions, if we can see the forest through the trees, maybe we should take the time and we should step back and we should ask the broader questions. What is really going on this planet? What is really going on in this life? What is really going on in my opinion, our eternal existence? What is happening right now? What are we in? And should we be here? Should we be here? I think we should be here right now. We are here. But I mean, my point is, should we be in this framework, in this situation of all of these issues and corruption and systematic failures? Anyways, thought it was a really cool clip. Want to share those thoughts with you guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let me know what you think of what David Icke was saying there. I think he's spitting facts, but let me know if you disagree. Thank you guys so much for joining. We'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.